Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast. Welcome to the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and again, another different layout of how we're doing our episodes now, because there's just so many people in Wichita that we want to talk to, so we've got to branch out. So with all of that said, I'm happy and pleased and excited to introduce most worshipful Cole Presley. Cole, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Hey, I'm glad I could be here.
Sweet. So before we tell about what you do, where you're from, all of that, when Cole is one of the people, when I go to Grand Lodge, and I'm going to just say names, and if I don't say your name, well, get over it. I always, when I go to Grand Lodge, I'm looking for Kellerman. I'm looking for Cole Presley. I see Talbot all the time. I'm looking for Tracy Bloom. I always look for Stoops because I like to razz them a little bit, right? So there's some people that you're just kind of looking for because we don't see each other as often. And every time we get there, it's always, how are the kids doing? What's going on? And different things like that. It's one of the cool things about Masonry that we wouldn't have crossed paths in the real world. One, we live miles apart, our vocations are different, but it's one of the cool things about Masonry. But if I ever needed something, I'd say, hey, Cole, I got a question about this, and I feel like that they would say, all right, well, I can give you some timely counsel, right? So the other thing we talked about last time, we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but we have a mutual acquaintance in a three-letter community that's not in the three-letter world that's out where you're at. And so I think I said, hey, have you met him? And it's like, oh, yeah, I've recently met him. But I think he's been doing what he's doing now for pushing a couple of years. And if you haven't seen him lately, it looks a little different.
Oh,
yeah. So we'll talk later about that. So
okay.
After all of that noise, what we like to know on the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast, we want to know as much about the man as we do the Mason. So Cole, who's Cole Presley?
Cole Presley is a 40-year-old fat guy who likes to who likes to relax. No, I'm kidding. So I am married to the love of my life, have been for 21 years now, and we have three children that we chase everywhere. My oldest is 20. He plays college football over in Eastern Kansas, and so we're glad we've got him home right now. But he's on Saturdays in the fall. You won't find me at a Masonic event. You will find me in a football stadium. Our daughter just graduated high school. She's getting ready to go to K-State, and she's going to study political science. So I think dad and daughter are going to have quite a few ideological conversations as she.
Well, it's K-State, not KU, so it'll be a little different.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we'll be having some chats in that regard as well,
Yeah,
I do believe.
yeah.
And then our youngest is going to be a sophomore in high school, and he's an athlete, chases everything. And so if you were to come to Hill City, Kansas right now, and try to find us in the evenings, it's probably at the baseball field, or you're going to find me at work. Professionally, I'm the sheriff of Graham County, Kansas, and have been for 16 years. This is my 23rd year in law enforcement. And so in a small community, sheriffs aren't bigwigs that get to sit behind their desk. They work the road just like their guys do, work nights, weekends, holidays, just like their guys do. So if I'm not home, I'm either at a baseball field, a kid's sporting event of some kind, or I'm out patrolling the road. And so and my wife is a nurse. So if she's not home, she's probably at the hospital. And if it's really gone bad, we're both probably dealing with the same thing. And so that's kind of one of the aspects that keeps us close is, there's always that adage that cops and nurses don't get along because cops break them and nurses fix them. But in reality, when we can deal with the same crisis situation together, it's really good for us, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're not chasing kids and you're not chasing bad guys,
right?
Talk to me in between chasing kids and chasing bad guys. How did you get into Masonry? So where'd you start and where are you at now?
So that started through work. So on Thursday nights when I was working for the police department, about twice a month, I'd hear the sheriff call out on the radio that he was going to be busy for a while, not to bother him, and didn't think anything of it. But then I began to notice that his car was always parked out in front of this building that was built in 1864 that had what we all know now to be square and compasses on the corners. Wasn't something that I recognized, but there's 10, 15 vehicles that were parked there at any given meeting, and his was there, and he'd be there from 7 to sometimes 10 o'clock, depending on what was going on. I'm like, I wonder what it is that he's. So finally, as a brand new officer, I got the nerve to ask the boss, I said, what are you doing in there? He's like, well, I'm going to lodge. I'm like, what is that? What are you? I mean, that's cool. What does that mean? So then he explained it to me, and he kind of looked at me and he says, I honestly can't believe you haven't asked before. And I said, well, you've piqued my interest. And so I petitioned and joined the lodge in 2001. The sheriff, my predecessor, was one of my co-signers, and he was my mentor bringing me through. And so after I was initiated, if I wasn't working, of course I wasn't married and didn't have kids yet then, but if I wasn't working and he was, he'd come pick me up, get in the patrol car, and I'd drive while he checked my proficiency against the cipher. And we did that all the way through. I completed my degree work that December. So took all 3 degrees in 2001, and and started my journey from there. Like any good brand new Mason, I was thrust into a chair immediately upon completing my degrees, and away we went. I became master in 2005, sat 2 years in the East, and in my second year, I moved from there over to our secretary seat for a while, and really enjoyed that. Worked good because we were starting to have kids at that point, and so it gave me a reason to still go to lodge even with all the other busyness going on at that point. So
Let me interject real fast because you left it out. For those who don't know, so master in 2005 and 2006 of Millbrook Lodge number 281. So I want to make sure that if you're tracking, you're like, which one is it, in case I forget. So is your master of the lodge, secretary, keep going because it gets wild now.
Sure. It starts to pick up after that. So in 2010, we had a visit from a district deputy like we normally do. And I had gotten to get a little stir crazy. I mean, I knew my role, knew my job, did it. I think, well, I mean, Grand Lodge never called and yelled at me much. So I thought I was doing my job as secretary okay. And as he was finishing his visit paperwork, now that's the old style. That's the 3-page
Oh yeah,
triplicate carbon copied forms that you're sitting there waiting on him to get done. And finally I asked him,
ticket.
yeah, yes. And I said, how does a guy become a district deputy? Because I had never been to Grand Lodge, never paid attention to anything other than what they sent me in the mail. We had 3 or 4 guys that always went to the annual communication that took care of it for us and worked for me. And he just looked at me and he says, well, you just did it. And I'm like, whoa, buddy, what's that mean? Well, this poor guy had been our district deputy for 5 years and could not find an adequate replacement. And he was like, yeah, no, it's yours. You'll get a letter in the mail here soon.
My big mouth.
Exactly. So I did. I got a letter from Kent Needham, who was the deputy grandmaster at that time, getting ready to come in as grandmaster. And he said, hey, congratulations. I understand you're going to be the district deputy and I think we were the 33rd district at that time. They've changed so much I can't keep track of that.
It changed when I was district deputy. I felt like it changed in the middle. I'm like, I don't know if I'm area what, but I'm just a district deputy to help you out. What do you need?
Yep, here I'm your guy. Yeah, you're on my list, so let's go to work. Exactly. So I served as a district deputy for 2 years, and got the opportunity to come on as an area deputy. And there were a couple of reasons for that. I rejected the tickets out of hand. I thought they were crap. They didn't give us any of the data that was beneficial to the lodge, beneficial to Grand Lodge. It was, how much money you got in the books. Do you have an insurance policy? Yeah, great. Is your charter on the wall? Oh, wasted stuff. So I started drafting a report after that included some photos of the lodge and stuff inside. In fact, Tony Borm used to make fun of me about them because I didn't just send them to Grand Lodge, I sent them to everybody, and trying to shake things up, trying to get it going, and being that outside guy to try to break that mold a little bit. And
Yep.
um, I believe that's one of the reasons I got to become an area deputy, was because I had made enough noise. This, well, let's see what you can do. So
Yeah, right. Let's see. All right. You think this is so easy? Come on in. All
yeah.
right, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the sentiment that was there. So as area deputy of 10, then we had all become, introduced to the idea of strategic planning in the Masonic organizations. That's, through Rick Reichert was the leader of that at the Grand Lodge level, and I took his model and applied it at the area level with lodges individually. In fact, brought him out to Western Kansas to help me with a strategic planning session for individual lodges, and we began to develop a relationship in that regard. We trading emails back and forth. Him helping me get some of these lodges to build a plan and help them get it started executing it. And strategic planning at that time was new to me. Was a concept I hadn't heard of, but really saw the benefits of it. And so he helped me kind of dig into it and get to where I understood what it was, what it meant, how to take it from the super complicated down to something that we can use and put it out there. So when you start throwing words like strategic planning to a bunch of brothers who are farmers, and that's not going to fly. You've got to capture it in a way that they understand what you're saying.
Yeah, they know what it is, but they just don't know it as that title, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. They call it forecasting or something else that they might call. But yeah, you have to adjust vernacular.
Yes, and once they understood it, then it was go. So,
it's the buy-in. You got to get the buy-in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
your ABGM, your assistant Grand Tyler, keep moving.
Sure. So that was that same year that I was the assistant Grand Tyler for Don Newman, and as Rick Reichert's and my relationship began to develop more, then he calls me up and says, "Hey, let's go to dinner." Okay, great. We went to dinner after an annual communication in Salina. It was one of the last ones we did in Salina. And we went out and had dinner, and that's when he had asked me what people call the big question is, hey, here's what you've been doing. We like what we're seeing out there. We still want to see that on a bigger scale. What do you think about being the Grand Senior Deacon? And so my wife and I took some time to talk about that, a lot of talk about that with a young family and the demands on a Grand Lodge officer. That was not
5-year commitment.
Yes.
Yeah.
5-year commitment. And my kids were all still in grade school and into junior high at that point. And what was nice was Rick was very adamant that, hey, I get it. So it's okay to say no. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you can't do this. Someone's going to ask you in the future. And if you need to wait until your kids are grown to do this, don't feel bad about that.
Right.
So we sat down and just kind of plotted it out, and knew that 5-year commitment would end right before Cody got into high school. And it was kind of either we go then, or we wait 10 or 15 years and see if we go to the Grand Lodge line
if
later.
You're interested again, or if somebody's interested in you again, frankly.
Exactly. Yeah. 10, 15 years, Grand Lodge doesn't look anything like what it did back then. So, moreover, it felt like the timing was right with strategic planning execution and what we wanted to do. It felt like now's the right time with that specific team. So, I mean, Darren Kellerman was already on. Rick is right there. Bob Talbot's coming on later, but is in the weeds. It was more about they were guys that I wanted to work with very, very badly, because we felt like we made a good team together. And so it wasn't necessarily timing then was the factor, as the team was the factor. And that's what I wanted to be a part of.
I think that's carried over to what the COA looks like today.
Yes.
I think that, I'm not going to go in the weeds on the COA. There was a time where my perspective, I didn't like the way it looked or felt. I love the way it looks and feels now. That's just my opinion, one man's opinion. So
that's been a big a big lasting aspect of what we were able to do back then, as far as to break a lot of those molds, and not to downplay what had been done generations before.
Sure.
That's not what I'm trying to do.
To evolve.
But when I was onboarding, and the initial counseling was, start planning your year as Grandmaster, and keep those things a secret so that no one steals your ideas. That instantly rubbed me, Darren, several others the wrong way, because it's like, what change
Synergy.
lasts?
No synergy. No
None,
flow.
none. So we broke all of those barriers, even into, without going completely into the weeds, even into senior deacon selection, to make sure that the COA was going to remain cohesive. It'll always be that deputy grandmaster's decision who he appoints there, but there's input now from everybody else. So
No, yeah, there'd be, and there should be that counsel. So if they say, if some fool says, "Hey, I'm thinking about Byrd in the mix," okay, he might be interesting, but can he be managed? Can he do this? And does he fit? Does he fit this continuity? Doesn't have to be like us, but is he going to just shut off what we built and go off a different direction? All of those conversations have to be had
yes,
for the
and
best interest of Masonry, not for the best interest of insert name.
exactly, and it's, so far, at least, it's working. So when the timing's right, those email threads begin to go, those side conversations begin to happen with the COA. Sometimes grandmasters feel bad because they get left out of that, but it's like, hey, Jack, you're headed to has-beens row, so let let the team do what it needs to do and get out of their way.
Yeah, you're past way longer than you are a current.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, get out of the way and let the team do what it needs to do, and don't cringe at who they've picked, because they've found a facet that they decided they want to work with this guy.
Yeah.
And let them have at it. And it makes a world of difference in.
Yeah, I think Kansas Masonry has benefited from it, frankly. So now fast forward, your Grandmasters 2017. So you've went through all that. And then after Grandmaster, you just said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to take 20 years off of Masonry. Or did you not? What happened after that?
Well, so I think I had roughly 60 days of relaxing. And then I got a phone call that says, hey, the Grand Treasurer is looking at stepping down. And I said, what? And
I know what this means.
yes. And so I played it off just to play that game. But me and Bob Talbot's conversation at that time was, I said, well, that's cool, good for him. And just left it at that. And he's like, yeah, no, it's not gonna be that easy.
Oh, that's right. That was Talbot's year. Yeah.
It was. So the thought process of the council was that we needed to take someone who understands the books, but isn't, what Kent Needham was fabulous at, was getting our books repaired.
Yeah.
And getting our investment funds in a position to be successful. That he did very, very well.
Yeah.
That structure needed to be maintained, and the COA needed a counselor, an additional counselor in addition to the Grand Secretary. So Tracy Bloom's strength is that he sat in the Grandees, so he understands the pressures that those guys are on.
Yep.
And they wanted a second in that Grand Treasurer seat. And so Bob's explanation to me when he gave me the phone call was, he was like, look, I know you can't add, use a calculator. I need your counsel. I need your counsel as a past grandmaster with so much of these other strategic decisions. And so that's why I jumped, was, again, wanted to remain a part of the team, help mold it. And it's not the hands-on role that the council has. I don't attend actually very many council meetings unless there's a topic they want my guidance on. Yeah. But they'll all pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, what do you think about this, etc. So I'm not the constant presence in that room that Tracy is, but when they need me,
yeah,
then I'm there, and I'm providing that guidance. And yes, I do the duties of a Grand Treasurer. I keep an eye on our funds and keep an eye on our investments, and those are meetings that I don't miss, and perform that function. But I have sat in that role since 2018, and the additional duty that Dale Morrow gave me was to take on the jurisprudence committee. And it's actually sometimes a little busier than Grand Treasurer is when the bylaw proposals come in, or if there are appeals that have to be looked at, or a legal question from the Grand Master needs to be tiptoed through, et cetera. So that can get sporty at times. And guys that have been to the annual communication have seen that when we've got the proposals going on. So being that mediator is sometimes a challenge, but
Yeah.
that's the role I have at the Grand Lodge level now.
Well, if that's all you've done, I mean, that's kind of weak, but whatever.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you invited me, so
It's like, oh, I got to get you on, buddy. Oh my gosh, that's a nice spin on me there. All right, so let me go back a couple of things. So let's go back to you. One thing that I recall early on. So you were a sheriff and you were getting yourself prepared to go to the FBI National Training Academy. So
yes.
you don't go in the weeds. So I didn't know how, did you kind of fund it yourself? There was a lot of interesting things that I think I understood about that. So high level, did you like it? Did you benefit from it? Would you do it again? And would you recommend someone else to do it?
So yes, and yes. The challenge for me was to continue to operate the office while I was away for 11 weeks and make sure that everything's taken care of. I had a great undersheriff who carried a lot of that load for me. The NA takes the equivalent of 17 college credit hours and crams them into an 11-week course. So it's intensive. I think I wrote 21 or 22 papers just for the FBI Academy. Wow.
And Chat GPT wasn't even there at the time. What in the world?
No, none of that. It was all
Yeah.
all with the fingers. And at the same time, I was still completing my degree. So I had nights where I was doing college and then other nights where it's like, okay, it's just this. That anyone who has the opportunity to attend the FBI Academy absolutely should. It takes leaders and puts them through the ringer and puts them back in a position to understand character-based leadership, servant leadership, more importantly, and then puts them back into the field in a mindset, not of becoming a federally driven FBI agent at all. It's all a leadership-based course. There's some technical things that you bring home with you that you didn't have before.
Sure.
But mostly it refines who you are individually as a leader, and that begins to impact your agency when you come back home. That's the biggest piece that is a part of that. It is physically demanding. I did not look like this when I went to the academy because there's quite the physical prep that has to.
Oh, I remember you getting prepped for just the running in itself. It's like, hey, I'm baby stepping into my running, and I remember you're tracking your running, and it was like, for some, I was invested in that journey with you. So did you forget that you did that? That you posted those?
Every now and again, I'll get a memory will pop up on Facebook that says, hey, I ran 5.4 miles today. And I'm looking at that now at 44 going, yeah, that didn't even sound fun.
Well, no, so I just, the reason I asked that, because that's always been top of mind, because I felt like we got a little bit of a piece of that to watch you kind of start and go through it. So that was kind of cool. That was why it was top of mind to bring up.
Sure. No, it was kind of cool. Was kind of worried that folks at home was some of what I posted once I was at the academy, was kind of concerned that folks would see that as, well, he's off screwing around instead of being here at work. It really didn't.
He's not going to come back and serve us. Where's he going next?
Yes. In fact, when I got home, we went to eat lunch and we're walking out of the cafe, and a little old lady walked up to me and she says, well, you must have failed. I'm like, well, no, ma'am, I actually did very well. I was the class speaker. I had all good grades. And she said, but you're not in the FBI. Well, that's not what that school was about.
Right.
So I had some of that I had to walk back here locally. I think a lot of folks thought I was headed off to the federal government and didn't quite understand what the training was. But
yeah, no, it's good. And I think, in the smaller communities, it probably benefited them more than they think. And it was always fascinated that it kind of had to be self-funded in a weird way. And I would almost think moving forward, smaller municipalities would want to budget for that. Because not only is the benefit from the training you get, but just like masonry, now you have all these other resources that you can call. Hey, Bill in New York, have you ever dealt with this before? Hey, John in El Paso, I've got some cartels flying their planes over and dropping drugs at these little airports. All of these little things, right?
Yes.
And I think that's another resource.
Huge help. The demand is there, and we're starting to see um, smaller aspects of the FBI Academy start to be shipped out. So they have some products, some training products that they're bringing out to train at local agency. That's not the full academy. Our state academy, KLATC, is building a leadership development program now because the leadership development demand is huge. And in fact, it's something that when it's time to take the belt off, it's something I hope to get involved in and really help small local agencies, because we don't do policing like Wichita does. We can't. It's a different dynamic, different aspect. The way we approach it every day is different. We've got to train our leaders differently. It would do me no good to bring a captain from the Wichita PD to Graham County and expect them to function day one, because we just
Absolutely. Well, the other thing, and kind of shout out to Rob McClarty, who's past Grandmaster, what he's doing over at Klutzy too. So there's just such, and he went to the FBI National Academy as well.
he did.
And I think, yes, Masons are everywhere. Everyone says that, blah, blah, blah. But literally, I mean, we're in all facets, and it's not in a nefarious way. So shout out to Most Forceful Rob McClarty, who's been on a previous episode. He's a cool dude as well. If you ever just get to sit down and just get the apron off and just talk to him, he's the same as he is with the damn apron on. He's just a realistic guy. So, all right, couple of questions. So I'm gonna throw some. I'm going to throw a couple. I'm going to throw one easy and a couple of tougher ones.
Okay.
You're a grandmaster again. Just what's the one thing you're like, man, I would do different, or I didn't get to accomplish? Just one thing.
I think our building,
one focus.
yeah, our building would have been what I'd like to redo.
You're
Not
talking
because
the sale of the Grand Lodge building?
and that wasn't finalized when I was Grandmaster. That went beyond that, but I'm the guy that kicked that off. We tested the waters to see if a capital campaign was going to work or not. That we released a couple videos talking about it, etc. I think we should have approached that differently. I think we read the appetite of Kansas Masons incorrectly then. I think we should have really built something completely different in that regard. I don't know that today we could afford to operate that any more than what the tea leaves showed us back then, but man, I sure miss that place. It was a majestic place.
We're going to talk about operating expenses because that's money is near and dear to my heart. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So that's great feedback. And part of being a good leader is having a proper after action review with some proper reflections. Like, man, I could have probably readjusted. So I love that. Why aren't your thumbnail is FBI, Freemasonry, and faded pillars. So why aren't more men joining Masonry today? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but what do you think the top few are?
I don't think they see the value of the fraternity the way that we do. It's not that we're not selling it. It's not that we're not out there. You can look on social media and see that anywhere across the state, even in tiny lodges like mine, people are out and are doing things. I don't think the value of
the perceived value.
Yeah, I don't think they weigh it in the same manner that we do, at least yet. There was a study that came out that showed that a lot of our veterans were probably going to come home, leave the military, and desire that camaraderie and that sense of fraternity again. And you haven't seen that. A lot of them, my brother is one of them, has that mindset of I'm going to live out in the country and be left alone. And because he was one that I really thought him and I would have a conversation about the fraternity, and we never really had. They just don't measure it the same way that we do. It's frustrating because we know what the value of our fraternity is. We know what we know what the benefits of brotherhood are, and they're not.
You
It's
know, if
just
they give it a flyer, if they'd give it a shot, they'd see it. But, we didn't know what it really was till we got in.
no.
But now it's like, there's no way I'm leaving.
Exactly.
You write that check, whether, it's a flawed perpetual life program or not, you write that check and you make sure you never go away. But, it's just like, hey, Masonry, you invest time, that commodity, and money, too little to me, into the fraternity. But I think that the fraternity also invests back into you as far as self-worth and character and fellowship. And I think if folks will give it just a real flyer, just really take the flyer and say, you know what, I'll be eyes wide open. And then the lodge says, okay, his eyes are wide open. Let's do our job. We don't have a membership issue.
I agree with that. I agree with that. We've also got to find a way to communicate better why we need the right men involved. And so instead of us constantly promoting our value as a fraternity, we need to show a desire for the value of new members, of that new member input.
Yeah. We
You're
talk
right.
about making good men better, but you know what? You have to have good men to help the good men be better. So
Yes.
you've got the quantity argument and you've got the quality argument. Obviously, I love quality, right? But right now, unfortunately, the quantity's paying the bills. So we got to find a balance in there, Masons, which is going to segue me into a rant. Sorry, this is the time where I like to rant. We, as proud Masons, so many folks like to go around and rock the square and compass. I want the Freemason name tag. I want the license plate cover. I want all the regalia on my car. I want 37 lapel pins down my sport coat, look like a crazy person. All of these things. But my observation is this. What I observe is the people that are pimping out all this crap where it looks like a Girl Scout sash with all of their pins on there, they seem to be the loudest ones in opposition of, I'm making up numbers, a $3.50 a year per capita increase, a $10 per year per capita increase, but they'll go to the damn swag counter and drop 50 or 100 down on all this Masonic stuff to say, I'm a proud Mason, look at me. But you're doing that for show, but you're not doing that behind closed doors. And I think that when you go to Grand Lodge, if you don't go to Grand Lodge, I don't want to hear anybody griping. It's like complaining about presidential elections. I don't care who you vote for, go vote, because if you don't vote, you shouldn't even get to talk about it. That's my stance on that. But go to Grand Lodge and you're going to say, well, I'm not going, I'm not a voting member. Well, talk to your officers and tell them how you would like for them to represent your lodge. So all your excuses, I got a counter argument for all of them. So keep them up. I can go for days. So, but the little stuff, why are we so cheap? Why are we're dumb sometimes, and this is the collective we, right? But so I don't, do folks think that the money's going to be there forever? Are we that naive? So now, Mr. Grand Treasurer, tell me where I'm wrong.
You're not. You're not. One of the biggest things that hurts the Grand Lodge's ability to meet its mission is our lack of funding. And one of the biggest things that will stall a project quicker than anything else is the idea that we may have to ask for money to get the project done. That's a political equation that is conducted every time a new project comes up. And every year when we sit down to build the next operating budget, we're looking at what cuts we have to make, because our system is designed to tax for X amount of members. Grand Lodge gets X amount of dollars. Well, if every year we know that those X amount of members are going to decline, so is the pool. So you either increase the tax or reduce your operating. And in most cases, we've had to do both just to maintain what we have now. It opens up questions related to our spending, which I don't have a problem being accountable with our spending. It's not our money, it's the craft's money. I get it, right? But you've given it to us to help your lodge be better, to help, to provide us a mechanism to meet our mission. And it's agonizing and aggravating honestly, I want to take our entire per capita system and throw it in the trash and insert a completely different model. I'll raise some eyebrows when I finally have a product ready to show up. But this concept of we're limited in what we can do based on our money that's ever declining, and we're fighting the political aspect of, you've not demonstrated enough need for this. Well, it's not our project, guys. It's for it's for you. I want to take our entire funding system and throw it out and put in a system that meets the mission and is transparent and is fully adopted by the craft, not by the Council of Administration. I think it could really do a lot of good for us in that regard. Will it change the cheapness mindset? No. Will we still have folks showing up looking like they've been to the Dollar General store, to the Masonic Dollar General store? Absolutely. Those aren't going to go anywhere. And I guess I don't really have a beef with it. You want to go buy a sword, buy a sword. I mean, it's your money, do what you want with it, but give us the tools that we need to help get your lodge up and going, to help your lodge help your community, which is why it was there to begin with. So an old example, and I can't cite it appropriately because I haven't read it in a while, was of a lodge in a community that, I mean, it's part of the westward expansion. We had lodges before we even had government, local government. Towns are popping up, needs are showing up. One of them was, hey, we need a school. The lodge came together, found the funding, and built the damn school. It wasn't no bond issue, there was no government structure for that kind of stuff. They just did it, and they helped themselves in the process. The lodge met upstairs, the school was downstairs. They just built the building to meet the need. Our funding structure needs to be the same way. I want to see us come in, let the leaders get up with the budget far enough out that members can adjust, present the operating plan. Now here's the cost of that plan. Let the craft look at it, give the craft an opportunity to amend it if the leadership's doing something absolutely crazy. Let them say, yep, this is what we want to do. Then compute, all right, here's per capita based on the plan that you just adopted. So, if in a year we have 5 or 6 different events that we want to put together, a leadership development program, the cost of the annual communication, we want to make sure that the Grandmaster's on the road and doing things. So we've got to fund that. Yeah. Every one of those line items gets put out before the craft at an annual communication, or even a special communication of the Grand Lodge dedicated just to that next year's budget. Let the voting members come in, let them see them, let it get up and answer questions where we're not restrained by time. And once they adopt it, then we can sit there. The treasurer and the secretary can sit there and do a computation real quick and then get up and say, all right, per capita for 2027 is going to be, $35.15 based on the plan. It's done.
Yeah.
And it's done. Now we're meeting needs. Now the craft sees what, in better detail, what's coming and can work it from that way. Instead of us standing up there saying, pretty please, can we have $1? It's, here's what we want to do. If you're not going to fund it, tell us what to take away, and work it from there. So it'll also force the craft to make the decision, because if they won't agree on it, we've got to build something to operate. So you won't leave that day without knowing what's coming, whether it's an increase or a reduction. And at that point, gets everybody involved. So.
But, and you shouldn't go in there with that mindset of, oh, I wonder how much it's going to be. It should be of the mindset, what are they going to present to us, and how can we add value to our community? Oh, this sounds great. Oh, it's only an extra $6 a year, 50 cents. That should be the mindset. And I think the other thing that folks aren't keeping in mind is this: as our membership, forget nobody's ever demitted again, right? Nobody went out non-payment, and we did. The death curve is impacting us as well. And I think that's a whole nother factor. So we're doing this based on this amount of number of members, and every little damn dollar counts. I don't know that folks really think about all, you lose 100 people. That's 100 people worth of per capita. Mm-hmm. That's real money. on a, on, you know, on a, I don't think, I think people realize that, oh, there's probably 30, 40 million dollars in there. You are an idiot. We're not even close. You need to at least move a comma out of that. It's way different than you think, guys. And I think we just need to be better stewards of, if we believe that we're supposed faith, hope, and charity. There, you've got that side of it, but we just got to run the damn business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got to be able to operate. We have reduced our operating budget in a 9-year period from what was it, about $835,000 to just under $500,000. So we've made enormous cuts based on our revenue stream, on the capital that we actually have to operate with, because those numbers have declined. That death curve is starting to slow.
Yeah.
We're going to see a holding pattern there. But what excites me about that is, if we can structure ourselves for success, the world's going to be able to see, or the state of Kansas is going to be able to see, this is only 10,000 guys, and this is the impact that they had. That's huge. If we're willing to put the work in, and if we're willing to put our treasure into it as well, it can happen. We've just got to structure ourselves for success.
Well, and I think as the episode that we did with Most Worshipful Wilkinson, he talked about the things that he has going on. And he really talked about where he cut. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm shifting. And I think that transparency, I refer to it as transparency. I think that transparency is critical for us moving forward, because I think if somebody presented a $20,000 program and said, this is the 20,000 we did, this is what we got, me as an investor in the craft, I'm going to say, that's pretty cool. What if we spent 30? What do we think? Because there's always a point of diminishing return. So what if we spend 30? What do you think? Oh, we'd probably get this. All in favor? Right? I think we need to treat it as a shareholder meeting in some aspects. Like, hey, is this our mission still? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Now that you all agreed it's our mission, this is what we need to do. And I think there's kind of a reverse. You almost, I don't want to say trick, but you got to remind people why they're there. Everyone bought in. Okay, you said this. Remember this. We're going here now.
I think it could go. The logistics of it are that we may need I don't think we could do it at the annual communication, because there's so much that gets crammed into there that the bylaws require us to do. It may take a regular communication of the Grand Lodge with just this as an agenda item. And I don't think it would cost us any money really to put it together. Grand Lodge is already at a place that has a lodge room. And if lodges will send representatives to this, we could fill that lodge room, no fee to attend, no lunch provided, go find lunch, go find it your damn self. And let's make it a business meeting, and let's hash it out throughout the day and get it set to where we're happy with it, and then put it out there. And then instead of it being the deputy grand master's budget, it's now the crafts budget. And it's no longer the council's strategic plan, it's the craft strategic plan, because they're the ones that approved it and financed it.
Yeah.
I think there's some pretty big things that could happen with that.
Well, I agree. And if we stick to the mantra, we are Grand Lodge, all of this ties back together. It's really not complicated, but it's complicated because we have humans involved.
It is.
And emotion and egos and dudes, ego, emotions, all of these things, like, guys. So done with my rant. So I'm glad you got to talk about it. I'm very excited about that. So, but what I'm also excited about is the most important question of the podcast. So everybody knows that watches Dancing Girl, Dancing Girl. I'm going to put 4 things on the screen, and one of them must go forever. And full disclosure for everyone, I told Cole, he doesn't know what they are, but I warned him. I said, I'm going to totally screw you over on this. I'm going to put you in a bad spot. And so I want you to just pay attention. He's going to put on the sheriff no reaction face. I know what he's going to do, but I'm getting ready to do dirty. I'm getting ready to do them dirty. So of the 4 things that are coming up on the screen, one of these has to go forever, Cole. Which one is it and why? And boom. So On the screen, so, on the screen, folks, you have Masonry, you have K-State EMA, you have the United States Army, and you have law enforcement. Masonry was never invented, K-State was never founded, the Army was never founded, and law enforcement, there's no such thing. The rule of law is out of the window. Cole, buddy, I told you in advance, I was do you dirty. Which one has to go forever, buddy?
Oh, the one that has to go forever is K-State.
Ah, yeah, I did that on purpose to screw you over. I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry, but I did you dirty on purpose, but I warned you in advance. I don't know if that makes it any better.
It hurts.
But I would save it. But think of the money I would save you.
That's true.
So
that's true.
see, I'm here for you. So, Cole, thank you. Thank you all for watching the Old Fashioned Masonic Podcast. Cheers.